Good evening everyone, Wild Rocket is here with you from Great Shelford. It's almost 11 PM, it's quite late, it's been quite a busy day for me, but nevertheless I'm excited to offer and present the next video of my Veganuary series. Today I want to talk about supplementing mineral deficiencies and vitamin B12 on a vegan diet. I'll tell you a story, a personal story that relates to this topic. When I first went vegetarian, almost 4 years ago now, I actually did so with the intention to go vegan. And not only that, but to go vegan and eliminate cooked foods and eat predominantly raw. But it didn't happen as quickly as I would have liked. I still continued to eat some dairy from time to time, even though I managed to give up meat instantaneously, and that's the one thing which I'm very proud of. When I had my awakening at that time, or I should say my switch in food consciousness, I gave up the meat and the fish just instantly. As soon as I had that download from the universe, it was like they were gone. Now the dairy took a bit longer because of attachments to things like pizza. It took a lot more training, a lot more education, and a lot more inspiration, a lot more of consciousness of a clean mind and a clean heart, as well as eating clean, which at that time there was still like a deficiency. I was still not thinking very clean, so of course my diet was reflecting that. So I didn't go vegan straight away. But one thing I did start to do after the first 6 months of going vegan, I actually invested in a juicer because I was really inspired by a lot of the people who I'd been following online who had had massive amounts of success juicing, guys making YouTube videos, guys who looked like they were in their mid-30s were actually in their mid-60s, and they looked absolutely phenomenal. I was thinking, hell yeah, I wanna. I looked at them and I thought, I want to look like that when I'm 60. I want to be as vibrant and as childlike and as carefree as they are at that age, and that really kind of inspired me to make the switch to vegetarianism and also to try things like juicing and eating a lot of raw foods. So I got a juicer about 6 months into becoming a vegetarian, and I started to juice a lot. Particularly I would juice greens. I would juice a lot of spinach and celery and apple and lemon, and I would have that like pretty much every single day for the better part of 6 months or so. And then I stopped for a while. I hit some roadblocks towards the end of 2012. 2013 was a very challenging time for me. I broke my hand, I got a slipped disc, I had my near-death experience, which really helped put things into perspective. So there was a long time in which I didn't juice, and I really regretted it later because when I moved to Dubai, I could not take my juicer with me. So there was a period of about 2 or 3 months while I was in Dubai in which I didn't have a juicer with me. And I became so used to that, of having like a sort of freshly squeezed pressed green juice every morning that I would run through. Granted, my juicer back in the UK was a very basic centrifugal juicer, which juices things like celery and apple, very tough fibrous fruits and veggies well, but doesn't really juice like leafy greens as well. But nevertheless, it was a really wonderful contraption, and I was so excited to have it. But anyway, when I moved to Dubai in late 2013, this is about this stage now. It's a year and a half into being vegetarian and a couple of months into being completely vegan. I didn't have a juicer, so I But nevertheless, I really wanted to have at least as a constant some sort of green juice every single day. So I was thinking to myself, trying to brainstorm ways in which I could keep doing that. And one thing I found useful was spirulina, powdered spirulina. What's spirulina? Spirulina is an algae, which you know, to simplify it, is like a kind of like a chlorophyll-rich green that grows underwater. Sort of similar to, you can think it kind of like a seaweed, to use a very kind of crude terminology. But spirulina is phenomenal because it's extremely high in chlorophyll, and it's one of the very few plant-based sources of vitamin B12. So if you were a vegan and you got to the stage in which you were being a vegan for quite a while, and you're concerned about mineral deficiencies, maybe you've noticed a change in your energy levels or your complexion, and you're thinking about getting a B12 test to see if you might be deficient in an essential nutrient like that. Spirulina is actually one of the few plant-based sources of vitamin B12. So having a teaspoon of that mixed with water and lemon, which is what I did, helped me enormously. And that's something that you can do too, and I highly recommend that you do. Spirulina is also really high in protein. It's very, very high in the spectrum of B vitamins and minerals. And spirulina can really help shore up mineral deficiencies because it's like many algae which are grown underwater. Their mineral content, things like iron, calcium, manganese, magnesium, are very, very high. So supplementing with that, with with fresh powdered, stone ground spirulina, can really help make up for some of that lack. So that helped me a lot, I think. It was not I mean, granted, having spirulina in water with lemon and maybe some Himalayan or some sea salt is not the same, and nowhere near as powerful and as detoxifying and energizing and as life force imbued as the freshly pressed juices are. But it's such an easy and essential it's such an easy and essential and practical way to supplement. So once I did that, I started to again notice I had a lot more energy in the morning. My skin was better. For someone like me, that's great, because in my previous life, as a young teenager, I had a lot of acne, a lot of acne, and I was very pale, and my skin was very flaky. So to know that I didn't have to use a billion different anti-acne face creams with all the chemicals and synthetics they have, just by switching my diet, that really helped tremendously. You can also use another great vegan supplement, is chlorella, which is very similar to spirulina, but it's just a bit of a different variety. And whereas spirulina is a very dark, has a very dark earthy texture, which a lot of people can find difficult to consume, chlorella might be a bit more palatable for you if you try spirulina and it was just too intense. Chlorella might be a good substitute. It's a much lighter green, a bit of a milder taste, not as nutrient dense, but it comes pretty close. So chlorella, and it's also kind of like an algae which sort of grows underwater. So that's great too. Now, what about foods? Dulse seaweed is a really good go-to for shoring up mineral deficiencies on a vegan diet. Dulse seaweed you can find either dried or sometimes fresh in your local whole food store. I know some Holland and Barrett's might. I believe I've seen my local branch of Holland and Barrett selling dulse, dried dehydrated dulse in packets. And dulse is a seaweed which is sort of dehydrated, you can soak it and you can chop it up and put it into salads. Dulse is very similar to nori seaweed. Nori seaweed is the seaweed that's used to wrap around sushi rolls, the common sushi rolls. Dulse is very similar to that. It has a very high mineral content. Opt for organic if you can. It's quite inexpensive, as a matter of fact. I think I remember buying like a packet of dried dulse which lasted me like a month a couple of years ago, that for about £3-4, and that lasted me a month, so it's good value for money. Dulse seaweed, so look into it. There are many things that you can do. Again, to recap, spirulina and chlorella algae green powders are amazing, mixed with some lemon to make them more palatable, some sea salt. Spirulina if you can handle the intense dark green chlorophyll rich taste. Chlorella if it's a bit too intense, if spirulina is a bit too intense for you. Dulse seaweed is great to put on salads, soaked and then chopped up. And yeah, it's something which is really important, something that you can do. Another thing I want to say, that I think it's, even if you're eating really well and you're eating a lot of raw foods, it's always a good idea to have those supplements handy, you know. It's good to do things like fruit, to eat fruit and to eat a lot of raw things, fruits like fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. But I think it's really important to also have these superfoods to kind of supplement a couple of times a week, 3 times a week, just because most of us, or if anyone who's watching this, you probably live in a urban industrialized environment and you're quite disconnected from nature, so you can really make up for some of the way that we have strayed far from our natural habitat as a human species by incorporating some of these. So this has been supplements, minerals and vitamin B12 for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's a couple of days left of Veganuary. I'm looking forward to seeing this month out with more inspiration, with more knowledge sharing and more health-filled abundance. And I hope you will all join me in this quest. If you like this video, give it a like, please do that. Leave me a comment, please do that. I will respond to you if you do. And share it with your friends or to anyone else who might be able to use the information. Until next time, this has been Wild Rocket with you. Peace and good night.